9 people, so I'm checking in with the 9th part. Black Scarf, criminal organization, yes. Round table that's not round, maybe that's important to mention. I think there were also some people involved who didn't really see it that way, who maybe didn't see it like that at all. That's often the problem. You get a patch from this big club, which some men made big at some point. Then you join, maybe not even through a particularly tough path, and then you get the fat Mexican or the Deshalb patch, or maybe the Gremium patch or something else. Suddenly you're lifted up, you become someone, so you're suddenly someone bigger than you were before. I've met very few people who weren't susceptible to that. I have met them, but for many it did something to them. And I don't exclude myself from that. It also did something to me. It kept changing me, made me feel 3 meters tall, 3 meters wide, over and over again. And then, of course, at such a round table, that they then say, yeah, we're the ones in charge here. We set the rules and we won't back down. And then there are older clubs sitting there. I'll take something like the Born to be Wild motorcycle club, for example, which also has a very, very long history where there are really members who have been there for 25, 30 years who really ride motorcycles and know the scene inside and out. The Stormbringer Motorcycle Club was also around for 20 years, I think, or 15 years at that time. And they didn't really want to go along with someone who's only been around for about a year and a half, but is already in this big club and you've never even seen him on a motorcycle. There were a lot of things going on, but everything was unspoken. That's really hard to explain because it always means I'm putting myself on the line. I say what I think and I express my thoughts, but I didn't really experience it that way. A lot of things happen behind the scenes out of fear. What could happen? How will it be received? Will there be pressure? Will I drag the club into it? Will I get in trouble within the club because I caused trouble? And so on. At this meeting, it was brought up again and again by 1 or 2 clubs, especially Schwerin and then the Warriors, asking, why are they sitting here at the table? Why are you sitting at the table? You're really just a village club, so what are you actually doing here? So yes, there was always a bit of friction directed at us. But somehow after a while, by the second meeting of this round table, that was taken care of. The content, as I said, was always about fear, like the bandidos might come here and everything should stay the way it is. We don't want a war, remember? The cops, the cops, the cops. If we have trouble, only the cops are happy about it. We want to live and visit each other. We all respect each other and we're all one big family. That's quite a conflicted family. That's a family I wouldn't want to be a part of. And that's why I think many people got up from this table and said, what a load of rubbish, but you felt compelled to take part. I think the first to leave was the Born to be Wild Motorcycle Club, and they said, we don't care, we don't want to take part, and so on, and we're just doing our own thing back there. They also had a clubhouse in Rostock, but we're going to Berlin anyway to visit our brothers. We won't vote for a party, we'll have our own party whenever we choose. And then they were out. Then we also said, okay, we felt compelled to do it and we wanted to as well. A mix of both. Can you say it like that? Yes, that's what I have now too. And okay, now we're going to organize a kind of first official celebration where we'll also be wearing vests and patches, and we'll invite the clubs from the region where we'll basically introduce ourselves. It's not the real patch party, but more like an introduction. And for that, we'll have a celebration. Then together at this round table, we found a date. We then went into the club meeting and said, okay, we wanted to create several celebrations anyway that should become established. So ones that we wanted to do every year, that was one time, and that was also the first celebration we organized professionally with clients. That was the so-called Schlachtfest. Then we had one night in Chicago where everyone came in suits, hats, and so on. And it was all themed around the 1920s in the United States of America. And then we also had from dusk till dawn based on the Quentin Tarantino movie, and our founding celebration every year in December. Yeah, those were the biggest parties we planned. In between, there was always the Husan ride on the 1st of May, which was our outing. And we gradually established that, not right at the beginning, but now it was clear to us, yeah, okay, we basically wanted to organize the Slaughter Festival and then also have the clubs there for the first time. Try not to have the neo-Nazis there. And that worked out well. We started planning. We used the hall again where the mechanics were. Then, always through Christian, who had a tattoo shop, we had it so that we designed a flyer. Yeah, Schwarze Schar, first party, Schlachtfest. There's a first party, Schlachtfest. There's food and drinks and strip and fun and everything. Everybody welcome. Who shows respect, German club, no, something like that. So, yeah, it always said on the flyer that everyone who gives respect is welcome, info number on it, and then, okay, everything prepared, Schlachtfest. Then there were a few people who said, okay, I think it's really awesome that you guys founded this. Some of them were from the drug scene who felt close to us, and they said, look, for this first official party, I'll sponsor something. So for this party, a stripper was donated and we got a comedy show sponsored by someone who did a comedy show. I still have a video of that. Channel members and partners can of course watch it. I'll upload it sometime. Then we also got food sponsored. Everyone threw something into a pot. That's what they thought. Okay, that's working. Of course, we planned for a lot of grilled food. Small slaughter festival. A little anecdote, when the party started, outside next to the door, we had a pot with some kind of barrier in it, and we had a pig's head stuck on top of it. Back then, we didn't think about the fact that later on, we would also have Muslim friends in biker clubs. Okay, they weren't really bothered by it, but we did have a pig's head stuck on a spike. We set everything up for that. It was all about presenting ourselves. I had given the order along with the other leaders. Not everyone should get completely wasted right away. There's a ban on alcohol until 10 p.m., then beer until midnight. And those are the kinds of rules we had to set because we wanted the party to work and create a vibe. If we messed up first, like starting at 4 p.m. and guests arrive at 10 p.m. and you're like, hey man, a good impression was very, very important to us. Outwardly, it was always about functioning, discipline, order. It was really important to us to present that image to the outside world. The party was supposed to happen. It had already been announced. Hell's Angels? Hell's Angels Rostock, Hell's Angels Schwerin, but as I said, that was just when they had just re-established themselves. Then we got an email from Gremium Berlin, who also, I don't remember what the chapter was called. The team had a reputation for having neo-Nazis and hooligans among their fans. They said they were from Berlin. Then Gremium Schwerin announced themselves. The Warriors from the Stormbringers, and of course that already felt pretty good. So the people from the round table also announced themselves and we spread the word in the city. We told everyone to come. It will be a massive celebration with food, drinks, and all sorts of things. And it worked quite well too. So the party started. Based on the pictures, I estimate around 200 guests attended, which was a huge success for us. The party kept getting bigger afterwards, but 200 people were there. Still, somehow it was disappointing, and that's hard to convey because we were under a lot of pressure. Now the clubs are coming, now they're coming together. Who's going to meet whom? We knew there were sensitivities between the committees. Then the ones from the Berlin committee show up, and then the ones from Rostock are there, and how will they get along with each other? And what kind of strength do the men bring? Back then, we also hadn't learned yet that when we invited other clubs we weren't friends with. You don't ask friendly clubs how many people they're bringing. They can show up with 50, 60, 70 people. If you're really close friends with them for years, then it doesn't matter, but clubs you don't really know anymore. You ask how many people they're bringing so you don't get overwhelmed. So it doesn't turn into a show of force, so you still have your own house under control, so to speak. Or so you can defend it, or so you're still the host at the party, so to speak. We forgot about that at this celebration. The committee was present in full force with about 20 people, significantly outnumbering our own group. That didn't go over so well with our friends, and I was actually really good friends with someone from Rostock, the new president. It also didn't go over well that they showed up with such a large group, that 3 of them stood together and the others stood there with about 20 people, and there was hardly any greeting at all. It wasn't like everyone went around saying hi to everyone.
Moin moin. Then the 3 of them were standing outside and said, wow, that's quite a lot. What are they all doing here? And so on. Do they want to switch to the committee or what? We said, no, they're not switching to the committee. They announced themselves for the party and now they're here. It's a bit awkward for
the party when that many people show up like that. It can be a bit intimidating when that kind of strength is shown, especially for regular guests who are there. All those, especially martial ones. To appear tough, I think Gremium always did it, especially intensely, just like I did. Not that I'm pointing fingers at others, I mostly point at myself. What an idiot I was, what a waste, it really is difficult. Then, yes, that kind of mood comes up. Also this tough posturing, and then the looks, and you can feel it. And then you see and then the other club comes and says something like this. I couldn't stand idly by as the guys from Berlin were here. We had various interactions and I thought to myself, man, that's so far from a real awesome rocker life. That you hang out together, party together and just have fun, but it's really just about dealing with something tough. Keep pushing and don't let go. Enjoy the party and the food afterwards. The comedy show was great. Really top notch. With the strip show and those are things... those things that came up that really bothered you, but you blocked them out. You only remember the moments of success. If I look back now, of course, it's something completely different. We went all in after that. The celebratory mood faded due to the very brief obligatory visits lasting only about an hour. Yeah, then there was that excuse like, well, I have to go. We still have something to do in the city. Really awkward. Yeah, because for a lot of those who were new to these biker clubs, partying, drinking, and just sitting around eating in a barn, like in that workshop hall, that just wasn't their thing. Like, they saw themselves more in the lounge, it just wasn't their world. After an hour, they left, and the others said they needed to return to Berlin and invited them to join. Yeah, we could meet up in Berlin sometime or come to Wismar and catch up. Yeah, kind of a half offer. I don't want to exaggerate. But they were also hinting at saying, yeah, the Black Shell could also become a committee. It would be great if they could do that. So we'd have more than just Schwerin and a few other places. That was the idea of the Berlin president. And I didn't completely dislike it. But it wasn't like I felt we had to immediately watch a digital versatile disc together and eat from the same bowl of popcorn. That wasn't really my feeling either. And we wouldn't have been up for that either. Okay, so the clubs slowly started to say their goodbyes. We also had 2 visitors from the Black Union Motorcycle Club who at that time claimed territory. In my opinion, Schwerin, Grevesmühlen. What's the name of the other one down there? The name isn't important, all the kids are so small anyway. But even a territorial claim used to be a somewhat bigger deal. The club at a certain time, now it was more of a lame horse. There were also a few guests from there whom we didn't get along with at all. We also visited someone who was with the Hells Angels Bielefeld at the time. He came via Lübeck and Rostock, and then he was also at the party. And after all the others from Rostock had left, he was the only one left, and then everyone was just hanging around. The Black Union members were often around him, calling him brother and such. We're familiar with each other and share the same contacts. Our club is nearly defunct. I overheard it all while doing other things. We talked for hours. We also talked a lot afterwards. People from our club hung out with them too. It was a lively atmosphere until around 1 or 2 in the morning. The mood was still pretty good then, just for a short while. If you want to support me, my book Hassmacht is out now. It's a Spiegel bestseller about violence. The brand behind the product, King Among the Kongs, check it out. Under the video, there are several links showing how you can support our de-radicalization and anti-violence work on the internet at schools. So lots of options, thumbs up, thumbs down, comment, all of that helps. Thank you very much, and ahoy, the video continues. Eventually, the crowd thinned out, and we also started drinking alcohol, partying. That's what's left in the end. Those are often people from the ranks of the supporters, hangar, and prospects. The clubs that just let themselves go once the regular audience is gone. And then out of nowhere, at some point, there was an argument. At some point, there was an argument and a discussion from one of the people who was there as a werewolf, from one of the supporters who was also from the right-wing scene who supported the Black Union. It's a bit complicated. But 2 supporters, or one from Werewolf and one from the club, then got into an argument. And then at night, around 3:30 or 4:44 or something, one of them pulled a knife. Yeah, he pulled a knife and said it doesn't matter. He'll go through with it now. He'll stab everyone. And then 33 of my guys stepped in and said something to... Grabbed a weapon too, pulled out a knife and said, no, that's not happening. And then it was like, oh, how dare you pull a knife on us? And they said, well, you pulled a knife first. I have to say, I didn't even notice the situation myself. I was outside. So this is just hearsay from what happened. But a lot was supposed to come out of this. So they pulled knives, stood facing each other, and one threatened the other like, I'm not going to take this. How can you? And then we said, look, you can't come into our house, take a dump on my Persian carpet, and then not expect to get thrown out or that there will be consequences. Because, of course, it was about kicking him out and saying that's not how it works. And then there were these sayings like, we'll settle this at the round table, or, yeah, we'll settle this at the square round table. That's when I eventually joined in too. The Bielefeld Angels member intervened, asking everyone to settle down. He then proposed that they all have a toast first. Yeah, can you do that then? Some people will recognize that too. Hashtag, I know that, like an order for peace. Like someone in charge when 2 or 3 people are facing off and suddenly someone with authority from their own club or another club comes in and says, all right, everyone calm down, stop it. You know, the death threats and the mutual hunting. I'll kidnap your hamster, I'll smash your microwave, I'll mow your lawn too short. These threats have been made and are out there, and suddenly someone says, let's shake hands, hug it out, and everything's fine again. Did I paralyze it? Not everything is fine. Not everything is fine. Something remains, something sticks, and then you can stand there, and there are also people who can express that with looks, who then say, yeah, sorry, dude. And when you drink your beer and you're standing at the bar, and then you start watching him like that, and then you go, yeah, and then the other guy says, is something wrong? And then you say, no, everything's fine, all good, dude, all good. Many people were in that environment, including street gangs, extremists, biker clubs, or organized crime. You develop a sense for it, whether it's a degrading look, action, attitude, and so on, and you want to see the enemy. You want to see the devil, and if you look long enough, you'll see him if you want to see him. This escalation, at some point, it has died down again. Then later there was another argument, yes, again between one of the support crew from the Black Union Motorcycle Club Australia and one of us, and then it was said, like, both of you just shut up now, yeah, just stay out of each other's way. I don't care what insults you've thrown at each other, it doesn't matter anymore. And then eventually they left, and we did too, and then that was it. The whole thing was over by 8 in the morning. We also slept in the hall, on the couch, and in a little camper, and whatever. And then in the morning, really just the last few people from the party were still there. And then everyone left somehow. And we celebrated and said, well, in the end, everything turned out okay. And mood-wise, we thought, yeah. Okay, it was great. Sure, that little slip up, that crap, we'll talk about it a bit at the round table. And everything else doesn't matter for now. I then went home with my girlfriend at the time. We also still had in the morning, a few people went for brunch, but I went home first to freshen up. And I remember very clearly, we got home first, and I said, after that night and being in the hall, I need to take a shower first. And then my phone rang several times, and then my girlfriend at the time came into the bathroom and said, your phone keeps ringing nonstop. I asked who was calling. It was a number I didn't recognize, but not an unknown number. So I was like, yeah, okay. I said, I'm in the shower, I'll answer. And then someone calls me and starts yelling at me on the phone like, how dare you? And, yelling at me, how dare you? Who do you think you are? And we're going to make sure you get disbanded, your colors taken away, and so on. I just said, hold on, stop. Who is this, first of all? Yes, this is Stefan, I said. Which Stefan? And he said, Stefan here, president of Black Union Motorcycle Club Schwerin, but he was slurring his words. I always heard, I'm not trying to badmouth anyone. It was a few years ago. But I would say he was totally out of it, totally drunk. And I said to him, what's this about? A party? And I was like, I have no idea. I don't even know if you're the president. You didn't even come to the round table. You sent some other members. You didn't come to the party yourself. So why are you talking to me like this? Because I can get pretty fired up too. If someone yells at me on the phone, I can't help it. I try, but I still have certain behavioral patterns. And even today, it's sometimes hard for me to break out of them. If I feel I'm being treated unfairly, whether it's right or not, I push back. And then he started talking about drugs. And I said, yeah, think carefully about what you're saying. And I said, I don't care. You're done. You can take them away now. You can cut off the patches and then I'll see what happens. And then I said, dude, where are you? Well, we're kind of standing in the yard. I said, listen, I'm getting out of the shower now and I'll call you back later and you can talk it over with your group to see if you really want to go through with what you just said. I kind of gave them a 50-minute chance to think it over and maybe ask someone else who's with them, maybe someone who's still thinking straight. Maybe they'll say, let's wait until Monday and then sit down together instead of shooting sparrows with cannons right away. Then I hung up. I waited 15 minutes. First, I called our sergeant. I said, call everyone, send a WhatsApp message, and announce an immediate alcohol ban. Everyone should get ready and head to the hall where we celebrated. I told him what happened on the phone and everything. He said, that's crazy. I said, yeah, listen, I'll call him in 15 minutes. And if he says, okay, I went too far. I was clueless about what he wanted from me because I didn't know what it was about. We could only piece it together slightly. That it must have something to do with, pulling the knife at the party and so on, and supporters and his support club and somebody, I don't know. I didn't really care about it. So I just waited to call back. I called back. And he was totally hard again. Did it? We're being disbanded. We're being shut down. The patches are being taken away. He's already talked to everyone and it's all over. And then I said, we see it differently. We see it differently. And then he said something that I wouldn't react to today. In that environment, it's almost impossible not to react to that. Some of you might know this too. He said to me, if you think you're so tough, then you have to go through with it. So he raised the stakes and said that we're just a bunch of losers. Put on some leather vests, came up with a symbol, came up with a name. We've only existed for about 3 or 4 months. And he said it, but not in a calm tone like I am now. Then on the phone, he said, you just have to go through with it. We don't give a damn. And then I snapped to and said, yeah, all right, let's meet up. I said, where are you? Well, we're sitting here in some garden, and I already thought, oh God, garden shed, probably since Thursday night, partying and all that. And I said, okay. I said, where are you? And yeah, we're here and there. And I said, yeah, we need to meet somewhere. We need to figure that out somehow. I said, we'll be there in 2 or 3 hours, and then tell us a place where we can meet. Then the communication was stopped for the time being. I set off, drove to the hall and met up with all our members. And I said, okay, listen, this and that happened. Quick decision from the leadership. Listen, now we have to go through with it. We were challenged, so we had to gather everyone we deal with, like those from the Black Squad supporters, those coming from Werewolf and their circle. Also Mike, my business partner, he came along right away too. We all met at that hall, I'd say about 20 guys, and we also said, okay, no vests, everyone in hoodies, t-shirts, sweatpants, not for jogging, but for fighting. For fighting, of course, that's a better option. That means bring all the axes, baseball bats, all kinds of striking weapons, knives, bring everything, and then get ready. In my opinion, we prepared 5 cars, but I said, we still have to wait and see. Who knows, maybe he won't go through with it and he'll take back the insult. And then I called him. He was supposed to play a role in this series from time to time later on as well. I called him the one I knew from the round table and who was our contact person. He actually saw through things quite well, but he wasn't a very respected person. He was liked by some and disliked by others, as is typical with people. But he was a really nice guy. And I called him and told him, listen, this and that just happened. Your president just said this and that, and now we're here and we want to meet with you soon. And he was like, no, Philip, go back, and so on. And there's the round table. You settle disputes at the round table and not with an announcement like that. I said, listen, he said, if we don't come today and don't go through with it today, then we're done, then we're losers and so on. I can't wait until the round table is in 6 weeks. He made a statement and I have to respond to it. Of course, I couldn't just save face and say, yeah, I'll just sit back and tell the 20 people, look, I just got yelled at on the phone. We're the biggest losers. Our club is dissolved. Now everyone go home. It was a nice weekend. We had a good time. Impossible, because saving face is just so incredibly important. Then I talked to him on the phone and I said, look, call him. And if he calls me now and apologizes, or at least if we both admit that we both got carried away and so on, I still tried to reach out, no kidding. Yeah, because I knew, of course, once we set things in motion, this whole machinery would start. This is going to end in a huge mess. Blood, sweat, cops, all kinds of things. And then he called him. He called back saying the person was unresponsive. They were sitting together, also drunk. They're sitting there with 8 or 9 people together, hyping each other up about how big and strong and powerful they are, that they're the biggest gang in the world. You say you don't care about me at all? If he doesn't call now after agreeing to, I don't want to hear from you, I want to hear it from the other guy. I'd like to hear the other person's perspective. Perhaps I was also seeking an argument. Maybe I was looking for the argument too. Maybe it was already out of my mind back then. This is our moment to prove ourselves here, to show the others that it was carried through and how it was carried through, and how we met them. You know what, guys? This is going to get really, really exciting for you. But for now, as always, I'll sign off with an ahoy from the coast.